Welcome to The Source, where we combine the headlines with in-depth conversations with the newsmakers themselves. Sitting in for Pinky Webb, I'm Ria Tanjuatco-Trillo. Today on the program, the government prepares cash assistance for small-scale rice retailers hit by the price cap. The Social Welfare and Development Department sends financial aid to communities affected by typhoons and the enhanced habagat. And later, how is the agency addressing the growing number of elementary and high school students dropping out of school? DSWD Secretary Rex Gatchalian joins us live in the show. Small-scale rice retailers can receive a maximum subsidy of 15,000 pesos as early as next week to cover the losses they are expected to incur with the imposition of the price ceiling. The funds will be sourced from the Social Welfare Department's Sustainable Livelihood Program. Government agencies are working to complete the list of sellers qualified to receive assistance. Now, let's go straight to the source of the story, Social Welfare Secretary Rex Gatchalian. Secretary, thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Ria. Thank you for having me. Good morning to your televiewers.
All right, let's get to it. Now, President Bongbong Marcos's executive order imposing a rice cap took effect yesterday, Tuesday, and a number of retailers have been voicing out their concerns on its possible impact. Can you tell us how exactly is the government planning to address this?
Well, before the president left for Indonesia, he specifically met all the agencies concerned and instructed us to find ways to make sure that even if the price cap is in place, our small retailers don't get affected. The department has an ongoing program called Sustainable Livelihood Program. The same program was used during the lockdown during COVID. It was used during the Marawi siege. It was also used during the Boracay cleanup operations. Basically, in a nutshell, the Sustainable Livelihood Program gives our small entrepreneurs capital, one, capital to start up a business, and two, additional capital to make sure that during these trying times, their working capitals don't get eaten up by unforeseen circumstances. So in this case, the Department of Trade and Industry has been tasked to come up with a list of small retailers. They were tasked to work with rice retailers associations to identify who these small rice retailers are. They'll pass on the list to us, and then on the ground, we do payouts. The maximum amount is 15,000. So we're about to meet DTI in a couple of hours to finalize the parameters as to who is qualified, what is a small rice retailer. But bottom line, we're going to use the program to make sure that our farmers our retailers are taken care of during these unforeseen times.
All right, so could you tell us, Secretary, how much in total is being set aside by the SLP for this? And will 15,000 pesos be enough for these small rice retailers? Is it enough to tide them over?
Okay, first things first, Ria. We're still waiting for the final list from DTI. Like I said, we're about to meet them in a couple of hours. That should be able to give us a bird's eye view on how much we need to set aside. But just to assure everybody, the Sustainable Livelihood Program is an ongoing program. As we speak right now, it has a 5.5 billion unobligated line budget. So meaning there's 5.5 billion to use. So I think that's more than enough. Based on the discussions the other day, the 15,000 should be enough. Why? Number one, as forecasted by the Department of Agriculture, our farmers are starting to harvest. So in the next couple of weeks, we should see stabilization in the market prices of rice. And two, we're talking about small rice retailers, meaning their inventory that they bought at a high price shouldn't be that much. We're looking probably at a horizon of 7 days to 14 days. So by that time, they should be able to dispense with those inventories they bought at a higher price. So I think the 15,000 we believe should be enough. But we're going to meet with DTI again to fine-tune the details of the program. Again, let me emphasize, it's DTI that will be selecting the beneficiaries. It's DTI that will be coming up with the parameters as to how much each beneficiary will get. DSWD will use its program, the Sustainable Livelihood Program, to and our available funds to make sure that the retailers are taken care of.
All right. Now, you said it will be DTI who will really determine who is eligible for this assistance. But are you able to tell us, though, how exactly a small-scale rice retailer is defined?
I would rather leave that to DTI. I don't want to be answering something that is not in the competency of DSWD. That's why precisely we're meeting we've met the other day. They asked for 1 day, which was yesterday, to fine tune everything. Then we'll be meeting this afternoon, early this afternoon, for them to be able to explain to us what is a small rice retailer, how many small rice retailers are, where are they, and what are the parameters. Are we going to give 15,000 across the board, or is it going to be calibrated based on the inventory that you've bought? So these are the things that they will be defining to us later. One thing for sure, though, on the side of DSWD, we want to emphasize that, one, there is an existing program for such cases to make sure that our small entrepreneurs don't get hit by unforeseen circumstances. 2, there are available funds. And 3, our bureaucracy is ready to dispense with the payouts as soon as we get the list. That can be as early next week. We are more than ready to hit the ground running, so to speak.
Right. On the part of the small-scale rice retailers, anong kailangan nilang gawin if ever? Do they need to apply? Or it will really, all of this decision about who will get the subsidy comes completely from the agencies?
Ria, I would want to answer all of these things, but I don't want to be giving you information now only to backtrack later on. These were all tasked with DTI. But one thing I know that DTI told us is to make that they will be looking for proof of purchase. Meaning, we want to see that, yes, you have the rice inventory. Yes, you are a small rice retailer, but did you buy this inventory at what price? So I think those are the considerations that they will be looking at. But number 2, this is going to be putting the cart before the horse, but let me just put it on the table. 1, there are no perfect lists. We all know that. But one thing for sure, though, we asked DTI to make sure that there is a way of appealing. If you feel that you should be part of the list, there should be an appeal mechanism, as in all government programs, so that you get to still enjoy the benefits of, enjoy the subsidy that the government will be extending to our small rice retailers.
All right. Now, Secretary, I think as of now, this price cap, it doesn't seem to have a timeline or timetable. So kung maubos na ang funds from SLP, do you think that you'll be able to tap more funds in the event na marami pang may kailangan? Would you need to ask Congress for an additional budget, for example?
I'm going to stick to what the President said. The price cap is a limited run executive order. He said that before he left for Indonesia. 2, I'm going to hold to the statement of the Department of Agriculture that there is enough rice supplies and it's being harvested as we speak right now. So maybe we should put our faith in those statements, that this is not going to run more than what it should run. It will take its course, but it's going to be a short course, so to speak. But let me just also put on the table that the President authorized us, we're just waiting for the documentation to come out, to tap other fund sources of the department. Meaning if the SLP funds aren't enough, there will be the other DSWD within the department's budget that we can tap into, like as a budget for assistance for individuals in crisis situation. These are things on the table these are arsenals in our toolkit that we can use to make sure that the program keeps on going in the event that it protracts.
Right. So as you said, for SLP, that you still have 5.5 billion in funds that are unobligated. There is a harvest coming soon. So those things are definitely, hopefully, indicators that really this price cap should not, as you said, has a limited run. Secretary, do you have any update on the House commitment to add 2 billion pesos in cash for this aid? Have you been able to meet with Speaker Martin Romualdez on this?
Yeah, I spoke to the House Appropriations Chairman Zaldico, as early as Monday night. He was already extending the Speaker's instruction to make sure that they find more funds for this program. But I did assure him that at this point in time, the department has a rein on the finances. So right now, if we get the list, we can launch it as fast as we can. But I did tell him that any augmentation later on to the department is much welcome. So we thank the House for the proactive stance on trying to finance a program that they know is much needed by our small retailers. So it's keeping in tune with the times.
All right, Secretary, thank you for that. For now, we need to be taking a short break. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. Please stay tuned. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. I'm Ria Tanjuatco-Trillo. Our source today, Social Welfare Secretary Rex Gatchalian. Secretary, welcome back to the program. And I want to start off by talking about aid for the victims of habagat. We know that over 500,000 people were affected by recent typhoons and the habagat. How exactly is your department, the DSWD, assisting them?
Yeah, so we're talking about as early as Egay, Falcon, Habagat, Goring, Habagat, now we have Ineng. The department has a twofold approach. Number one, even before the storms strike or even before natural disasters strike, we make sure that we have pre-positioned family food packs across the country. Put it this way, we don't wait for a calamity to happen before we shuffle goods around. We make sure that in our 16 regional offices, we have goods stockpiled, working with the local government units using their facilities. Even for the storm strike, we have an approximate of around 1.4 million family food packs spread across the 16 regions in the country. We know very well that disaster response is primarily driven by the local government units, but we also know that our local government units may have limited resources. So the national government's role is to augment them. And just for the trio of storms, Egay, Falcon, and the first round of habagat, we dispatched close to 1 million, actually not close to, 1 million family food packs in a 3-week time span in the regions of Cordillera, regions 1, 2, and Central Luzon. Now for the second set of storms, that particularly hit Western Visayas very hard and portions of North Luzon again, we dispatched close to around 200,000 family food packs. Now on top of that, as the President always instructs, a family that's been affected may not find everything they need in those family food packs. We also know that when you have these storms, livelihood is disrupted in a couple of days because they have to move to evacuation centers. So we are also extending emergency cash transfers in areas where a state of calamity has been declared. And this modality is ongoing. We're doing the payouts as we speak. It's just that because the storms are so spaced close to each other that it seems that the efforts are continuous more than sporadically spread out by bookends of storms. But it's an ongoing concern. I guess it comes with the territory, given that we're in a disaster-prone country, and the Burr months are traditionally the storm months.
Right, and we still have a ways to go as far as the typhoon season is concerned. Could you say that your department is ready for more storms to come? As
ready as we can be. Right now, as we speak, we do a daily inventory check. And right now, again, we have close to 1.4 million worth pieces or packs, family food packs, those boxes that you see on screen, spread across the 16 regions. Our disaster funds are also in place to make sure that if we need to do emergency cash transfers, we can tap into those. Because again, the President always emphasizes that, one, food is important, but beyond 3 days, families will have to look for things beyond those food boxes, and the cash assistance would matter very much so. Ria, I also want to point out that while we are doing this, the storm victim responses, Mayon is still acting up. We haven't relented in Mayon since it erupted. Initially, the relay in Mayon was for every 15 days that the department will shoulder the food for close to 26,000 families. The local government or the provincial government will take care of the 6 days. And then it's a relay of 15 and 6. But because it's been protracted already, it's beyond 2 months and it's going on its 3rd month, the provincial government communicated that they've already tapped out their food resources. So the department is now solely running the show when it comes to food relay in Albay. We've already distributed close to around 150,000 food boxes, and we anticipate it to keep on growing. We are also extending cash assistance. We're already going to gear up for the 3rd round of cash assistance to the families who have been relocated to evacuation centers beyond the those that used to live in the 6-kilometer radius of Mayon.
All right, so I almost forgot there that aside from the storms that we have to deal with, there's also this restive volcano. Now, Secretary, I want to talk about school dropouts. The DSWD will be taking proactive steps in addressing school dropouts. Can you paint a picture for us, sir, about just how concerning the situation is so far? How different is the dropout rate compared to, the past few years?
I think the Department of Education will be in a better position to answer that. But one thing for sure, though, we can always bank on our family development sessions, which are conditionalities to the 4Ps program. Remember, the 4Ps program was crafted in such a way that we break intergenerational poverty. And how do we do that? By investment in human capital, keeping our children in school and making sure that they get the necessary early childhood healthcare interventions. So obviously, if there's a problem that's been coming up and the data is quite skewed in the sense that there are more dropouts, then that means we have to recalibrate our family development sessions, emphasizing on the value of education, tightening the conditions of 4Ps, making sure that the families not only understand the value of education, but we can create a new paradigm shift in their mindsets that education shouldn't be an option, but rather it should be a basic human right and a mandatory human right. So again, we'll be working with the DepEd, making sure that the main tool that we have to keep our children in school, the conditions of the 4Ps program, are met by the beneficiaries. And if we have to recalibrate, and we are recalibrating the family development sessions to keep in tune with the times, then we will do it.
Who exactly monitors whether or not the conditions of the 4Ps are actually being met on the ground, Secretary?
It's both ways. It's a partnership between the DepEd and DSWD. It's also a partnership between the DOH and DSWD for the health side of it. So it's an all multi-agency endeavor, but the main data crunchers or the main conditionality checkers will be DSWD through our municipal links and our city links spread across the country. But of course, given that we don't have a presence in all the schools and we don't have access to the attendance, we have to work with the DepEd to make sure that our data is calibrated with their data.
Right. And from what you've seen, Secretary, what are the most common reasons for kids dropping out of school?
Yeah, there are all these economic reasons, basically, but that should have been answered partially by the 4Ps program. But I think it's still a matter of making our beneficiaries innately understand the value of education. It has to be a more than a physical intervention, it should be a psychosocial intervention. And that's why these family development sessions are quite important, because that's when we gather our 4Ps beneficiaries and we get resource people to talk about the values of keeping your children in schools to break intergenerational poverty. Now, the 4Ps program has yielded so many success stories, and these success stories can be the main drivers to convince our beneficiaries, current beneficiaries, that keeping your children in school is the only way out of poverty. It's still a battle of what the hierarchy of needs and wants are in that family.
Right.
Yes, they will always insist that an additional hand helping out in the household will contribute to the economic well-being of the family. But we have to counter that mindset by saying that, look, if you want to live like this forever, then keep your kids out of school. But if you want to get out of intergenerational poverty, break that cycle of poverty, then we have to really put emphasis into the mindset that education is not an option, but rather it's a mandatory, it's a human right.
All right. With that, Secretary, we need to take a short break, but to stay with us, this is The Source on CNN Philippines. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. I'm Ria Tanjuatco-Trillo. Our source today, Social Welfare Secretary Rex Gatchalian. Now, Secretary, before the break, we were talking quite a bit about the 4Ps. And speaking of the 4Ps, the Commission on Audit flagged the DSWD after it was found out that 2,991 beneficiaries out of 4,970 sample beneficiaries of the 4Ps were not on that official list. So that's over 60%. How did this come to be? How did it happen? Is there an investigation underway right now?
Yeah, these things happened prior to my time, and these things have been addressed even by my predecessor. That's a sampling. The total population is 4.4 million. And we've already said it even before I came here. Secretary Tulfo took the initiative of, it even happened before his time. Mm-hmm. This didn't happen during the time of Secretary Tulfo. This didn't happen during my time. This happened before our times. And what Secretary Tulfo initiated was a cleanup of the list, making sure that the list was tightened. When I took over the helm, I continued that effort and building on the gains that Secretary Tulfo put in. So we're in the process of cleaning the list, making sure that those that should be in the list are in the list. In fact, Secretary Tulfo ordered a round of reassessment. And in my time, we've already ordered 2 more rounds of reassessment. That will make sure that people who should be in the list are in the list, and those that who are not supposed to be in the list aren't in the list. Again, let me categorically say that those findings happened during the time before Secretary Tulfo took the helm and before I took the helm. But both of us endeavored to make sure that the 4-piece list is tightened and perfected to the best of our ability.
All right. So when do you think, Secretary, you will be done cleaning up those lists, or will it just always be an ongoing process to update them?
Ria, cleaning the list is an ongoing process. You have to remember there's attrition. Based on the law, people really graduate out of the program. Also, because some beneficiaries will refuse to comply with the conditions. So it's an ongoing concern. But the major initiative of really looking into the list and checking the list took place already in the time, again, of Secretary Tulfo, and then we continued it with 2 more rounds. The major revalidation is ongoing right now, and we should be done by end of September. But it doesn't end there. We have to keep on cleaning the list and cleaning the list. Ria, let me also point out that the current list that we are using is quite tricky. This is List Tahanan 3. List Tahanan 3 took place at the time of the lockdown, 2019-2020. During that time, the list wasn't really completed because the enumerators couldn't go out and reach out to the beneficiaries. A lot of the beneficiaries who graduated out initially came back to the department and said, look, after the lockdown, we went back to being poor again. So please reassess us. So it's an ongoing concern that we have to address. And I'm very thankful to my predecessor for taking the initiative in revalidating that list. Again, we're building on his gains, but this sampling of the finding took place before his time and before my time. But both of us endeavored to make sure that we get an accurate list.
All right, now, Secretary, I want to talk about the DSWD food stamps, because your department began the pilot rollout of this food stamp program, I believe, last July. Can you tell us how that is going and what has the feedback been this far?
Yeah, I think we have to, again, contextualize it. What we did was to symbolically launch the pilot. And even in our initial discussions, when I came to visit Pinky a couple of months ago, we said that the main pilot that the ADB has funded through a $3 million grant ran by the WFP will start sometime October, and it will run for 6 months. So we're doing the groundworks now, identifying the beneficiaries, fine-tuning the design. But the main pilot, the scaled-up pilot, will actually run October onwards for 6 months.
Okay, so it hasn't actually taken off yet. That will start in.
No, but the pre-work is being done as we speak.
Right, but the rollout will be in October, which is
yes.
Which is definitely good news. How many will be receiving it? Are there any particular areas that you will be concentrating on?
Yeah, Ria, we've just to contextualize it, in the last visit that I had in your studio, again, the pilot will run with an initial 3,000 families only. They will be spread across 5 areas. That these 5 areas take into account different settings. Some are geographically isolated and disadvantaged areas. Some are urban poor areas. Some are in former conflict areas. So 5 areas, 3,000 families, that's the target for the food stamp pilot. Once we get the terminal report next year, we should be able to ascertain what works and what doesn't work, what needs to be calibrated before we do the mega scaled up, which is 300,000 families and then another 300,000 till we reach the 1 million food poor Filipino families.
All right, Secretary, that is all we have time for, but thank you so much for your time this morning. We appreciate it. That was Social Welfare Secretary Rex Gatchalian. And thank you for joining us here on The Source, sitting in for Pinky Webb. I'm Ria Tanjuatco-Trillo. You're watching CNN Philippines.